Once upon a time, near a vast and dark forest, lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and two children, a boy named Hansel and a girl named Gretel. The family had fallen on hard times, and the woodcutter could no longer provide enough food for them. One evening, as the parents lay in bed, the woodcutter's wife suggested they lead the children into the forest and leave them there. "We cannot feed them any longer," she said. Hansel and Gretel, overhearing their parents' conversation, were terrified. Gretel wept, but Hansel whispered, "Don't worry, I will find a way to save us." When their parents were asleep, Hansel sneaked outside and filled his pockets with small white pebbles. The next day, their mother led them deep into the forest, and Hansel dropped the pebbles along the way, creating a trail. After a while, their mother told them to rest by a large tree while she gathered wood. As the children waited, they grew tired and fell asleep. When they awoke, it was dark, and they were alone. Gretel began to cry, but Hansel comforted her. "Wait until the moon rises," he said. When the moon shone down, they saw the pebbles gleaming and followed the trail back home. Their father was overjoyed to see them. But their stepmother was angry. She scolded her husband until he agreed to take the children into the forest again. This time, Hansel and Gretel were not as fortunate. The stepmother locked the door so Hansel could not gather pebbles. The next morning, they were led even deeper into the forest. Hansel, however, had a plan. He crumbled the bread he had been given and dropped the crumbs along the way. But to their dismay, they discovered that birds had eaten all the crumbs. Lost and frightened, the children wandered through the forest for 3 days, searching for a way out. On the third day, they stumbled upon a peculiar house made entirely of gingerbread, candy, and cake. Starving and exhausted, they began to eat pieces of the house. As they feasted, a kind old woman emerged from the door and invited them inside. Unaware of the danger, they followed her. The woman fed them a scrumptious meal and provided cozy beds for them to sleep in. However, the old woman was not kind at all. She was a wicked witch who lured children to her house to eat them. Early the next morning, the witch seized Hansel and locked him in a cage. She forced Gretel to become her servant. "I will fatten him up and eat him," the witch cackled, and ordered Gretel to cook meals to fatten Hansel. Poor Gretel had to obey, fearing for her brother's life. She had poor eyesight, so she would feel his finger to check his progress. Clever Hansel, realizing this, would stick out a thin bone instead of his finger. The witch, frustrated by his lack of growth, grew impatient. After weeks of waiting, the witch decided she could no longer wait for Hansel to fatten up, and prepared to eat him anyway. She ordered Gretel to fetch water and heat the oven. "We are baking bread today," she said, planning to bake Gretel first. Sensing an opportunity, Gretel pretended not to understand how to work the oven. "I don't know how to do it. Can you show me?" she asked. The witch, irritated by Gretel's apparent stupidity, leaned into the oven to demonstrate. Quick as lightning, Gretel shoved the witch into the oven and slammed the door shut, bolting it securely. The witch screamed and banged on the door, but Gretel did not let her out until the witch was gone forever. With the witch defeated, Gretel hurried to free Hansel from the cage. They rejoiced and embraced, grateful to be safe and free at last. Exploring the witch's house, they found chests filled with precious jewels and gold coins. "We can take these home with us," Hansel said, and they filled their pockets with the treasure. Using the witch's treasure map, the children found their way out of the forest. After several days of travel, they finally reached their home. Their father was overjoyed to see them and had been heartbroken since their disappearance. The stepmother had left, unable to bear the guilt of abandoning the children. Hansel and Gretel gave their father the jewels and gold, ensuring they would never be poor or hungry again. The family lived happily together, grateful for their fortune and the bond that had grown even stronger through their hardships. From that day on, Hansel and Gretel were celebrated for their bravery and cleverness. The story of their adventures spread far and wide, reminding everyone of the power of hope, courage, and the love between siblings. And so they all lived happily ever after, never forgetting the lessons they learned in the dark forest and the gingerbread house.